Yay, it's working. Okay, we're good. All right, we're gonna pick up in 1 Samuel 4. I know I did a little bit of that the last time that we were here, but I can't really remember where we left off. So we're just gonna do a little refresher. So far, what we have is our lovely story of Hannah, and how Samuel kind of came into play, God's purpose, his plan that he has going on to bring his word back to Israel, to bring Israel back to repentance. This is coming off of a time of silence and a lot of moral chaos in Israel. And so God is working, he is doing things. And then in chapter 3, we learned about God calling Samuel for the first time. This was Samuel's first real interaction with God, and especially in receiving a word from God, very specifically that. And so that was chapter 3. And not only practice just receiving a word from God, but he received his first message, like an actual message from God for someone, and it was that prophetic message of judgment on Eli and his entire household, which is going to be in play in these next few chapters here. So in chapter 4, if I can just turn to it here, I'll go ahead and read. Let's see. I'll just read the first 4 verses here. Thus the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out to meet the Philistines in battle, and camped beside Ebenezer, while the Philistines camped in Aphek. The Philistines drew up in battle array to meet Israel. When the battle spread, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the battlefield. When the people came into the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us take to ourselves from Shiloh the ark of the covenant of the Lord, that it may come among us and deliver us from the power of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh, and from there they carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, who sits above the cherubim. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. Okay, so that first, thus the word of Samuel came to all Israel, that really concludes chapter 3. We've been seeing Samuel increasingly become the focus of these first 3 chapters, but now he's actually going to be out of the picture until chapter 7. And what the author is doing here is he's kind of brought Samuel up, saying, look, God's doing something. He's bringing something new. But first, hold on, let's put him aside for a second. We need to deal with the old priesthood. We need to deal with this old leadership and see what God does with them before we return to what God is doing anew with Samuel. And so that's exactly what happens. And the rest of verse 1 really sets the stage for all the events that God is doing here. And chapter 4 can be split into 2 sections. The first 11 verses report the battle, and it concludes with a notice of 2 deaths, which is Phinehas and Hophni. And then the remaining 11 verses also relate the news of the battle and also reports 2 deaths, which is Eli and Phinehas' wife. And so the focus of the chapter is definitely the Ark of the Covenant. It's mentioned 12 times just in this chapter. So it's definitely the focus, really, of the next few chapters, honestly. So verses 2 to 3, we see that Israel is sorely beaten and they lose 4,000 men. And Israel's leaders ask the right question. Interestingly, they don't go, where was God in all of this? Where was he? He didn't show up. They don't ask that. They ask, why has the Lord defeated us? And they ask the right question. Why has the Lord defeated us? God was active, but his hand of action was against Israel in this battle. However, they did not take the time to actually ask God this question or seek his answer in any way. Instead, they decide to answer their own question, and they make matters worse when they do it. They say, let's take to ourselves from Shiloh the ark of the covenant of the Lord, that it may come among us and deliver us from the power of our enemies. Notice that. They are not asking God anything. They're not asking God for his power or for his wisdom or for his whatever, his message, his commands, his orders, none of that. They're saying, let's take the magic box and let's use that as our key to success. Surely it's powerful and it will do something for us. And what's interesting is the ark is totally opposite from everything that they have these ideas about it. The ark points to a God that is ruling. He is the king of Israel, although Israel doesn't want to acknowledge that. He is a speaking God. He relates his messages and his words and his commands to Israel. You don't have to guess what he wants or what's right or wrong. He tells it to you. And it also speaks of a forgiving God. Remember, the lid of the ark is the mercy seat. And that's where the high priest would go in once a year with the blood of the sacrifice that cleansed all of Israel on that day. So a God that makes a way for reconciliation, for forgiveness. And Israel ignored all of that. All of that. And they say, magic box. Let's take the fancy furniture and let's go into battle. And the original Hebrew can be translated either let him, meaning God, come among us and save us, or let it, meaning the ark, come among us and save us. The Hebrew allows for either translation. But either way, the assumption is this, that if Israel brings the ark into battle, God is forced to deliver them from their enemies. He is forced to give them a win. It's almost like saying God can't be a loser. He's not. He has to defend his honor. And so if we take this ark into battle, then he has to give us the victory. And that's a total attempt at manipulating, trying to control God. I think I said this last time. It's often called rabbit foot theology, and it's very, very much steeped in superstition. You see that in a lot of like word of faith movements, things like that, where basically it's, if I do X, Y, Z, then God must respond with X, Y, Z. If I believe hard enough, if I have enough faith, then God must heal me. Or, if I donate this amount of money, then God will give me riches in return. That is the idea, time and time again, and it's a formula, and God doesn't work like that. It didn't work in Israel's day, and it doesn't work today. And so that's exactly what happens. Verses 4 to 11, I can read, 5 through 11 here. As the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth resounded. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What does the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" Then they understood that the ark of the Lord had come into the camp. The Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us, who shall deliver us from the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods who smote the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, or you will become slaves to the Hebrews, as they have been slaves to you. Therefore be men and fight." So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and every man fled to his tent. And the slaughter was very great, for there fell of Israel 30,000 foot soldiers. And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. So these verses describe the enactment of Israel's plan, and it definitely did not go as they planned it to be. I like how in verse 4, the writer makes sure to tell us that Hophni and Phinehas were with the Ark of the Covenant. He didn't have to include that, but he did, and it sets the stage is set now for God's prophecy against them to be fulfilled. We're seeing how God is working things out. And there's irony in that. Israel's plans to bring the ark to battle as their key to victory, God is using that to quietly fulfill his prophecy against the old priesthood. And I think that that's really interesting. In verses 5 and 6, you see that the arrival of the ark greatly boosted the morale of Israel's army, and so much so that the Philistines heard it from their own camp. I was going to see if I could find where everybody was at on here. Ebenezer and, what was it, Aphek? Was that right? Yeah. I don't see it, but I'm trying to remember. I think it's, let me see, I had a picture of a map. Where did that go? No, I don't know where it went, but I had a picture of a map, and I think it was like up here somewhere-ish. I don't know, something like that.
That is very helpful.
Thank you, yes.
That's how I read maps too.
You know, this quadrant. I think that the response from the Philistines is very interesting. What do you guys think about the response of the Philistines?
Well, they remembered what had happened with the Egyptians.
Yeah,
So that part had followed. And they knew they had just won the last battle.
right,
So
yes.
when they heard, my Bible said, or the version I was listening to said the ground shook. So it was like, that's how excited the people were. So,
Probably stomping their feet.
yeah, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
So the Philistines at least knew that their God could deliver.
Yeah,
I think it was interesting though, because the ark they were hoping would be like scare them or like, you know, it almost had the negative effect, opposite effect on
yeah,
them.
you're right.
It was like, this is motivating us, let's really fight hard.
Right,
Like, it was just like talking about, you don't want to be slaves like they had,
yes.
you know, like it was almost motivating for them.
Yes. It is really interesting because you almost see this like, first they're like dismayed. They say woe to us because they realize that Israel has brought the ark into their camp. Maybe they sent scouts, you know, to see, and the scouts brought word back, you know, and they're going, oh man, that's supposed to be like their God, you know, that's their idol, essentially in the Philistines' mind of their God. And they're thinking, oh man, we're done for, because they're remembering the stories of Egypt, of the plagues and the mighty hand of God that happened there. But then you can see the shift where they're like, but we don't want to be slaves to them. And, you know, that God's kind of been quiet for a while now. He hasn't really done anything that mighty. Maybe he's not so mighty anymore, you know. I'm sure that there's tons of things that went through their mind, and that you can just see them rallying themselves, you know. Oh, you know, sure they had this ark, but we took them before. We beat them before. We can beat them again. And
It's interesting because mine says gods.
Yes.
Mine does too. Like there was multiple, like they did not,
yes,
you know, just know one
Yes.
Yahweh.
yep. I
They
noticed that
assumed
some
there were multiple.
translations are a little, you know, they kind of fluctuate on that. And I think that that's just a little peek into the mind of the Philistines. For them, it's about gods.
Yeah, it said they think in polyistic terms.
Right,
Like
exactly.
multiples.
Yes. I mean, Israel is literally the loner
Yeah.
when it comes to a monotheistic religion. Yeah. But I think it doesn't matter what they were thinking in terms of God versus gods. because they were thinking of the God of Israel, meaning all of the testaments of God's power in Egypt and all of that, they were attributing to the God or gods of Israel. So they're on the right track. But Israel's defeated, and not just any defeat, a terrible defeat. 4,000 before they brought the ark in, 30,000 after they brought the ark in. I mean, that is something. That's really something. And then in that was the verse 11. You see quietly here this, you don't miss it in all the chaos and the bloody battle and the, 30,000 died and the Ark of the Covenants got lost. Quietly within that is God fulfilling his prophecy. Hophni and Phinehas died. And there is God bringing judgment to the old priesthood, but also bringing grace, because in removing Hophni and Phinehas, he's removing these false shepherds that were leading the people astray. And he is removing that so that his people can now have good leadership under Samuel, whom he's raising up. And we can read the rest of the chapter here. I'll start in verse 12. Now a man of Benjamin ran from the battle line and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes torn and dust on his head. When he came, behold, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road, eagerly watching, because his heart was trembling for the ark of God. So the man came to tell it in the city, and all the city cried out. When Eli heard the noise of the outcry, he said, "What does the noise of this commotion mean?" Then the man came hurriedly and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were set so that he could not see. The man said to Eli, "I am the one who came from the battle line. Indeed, I escaped from the battle line today." And he said, "How did things go, my son?" Then the one who brought the news replied, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there also has been a great slaughter among the people. And your 2 sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been taken." And when he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell off the seat backward beside the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died, for he was old and heavy. Thus he judged Israel 40 years. Now his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was pregnant and about to give birth, and when she heard the news that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband had died, she kneeled down and gave birth, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the woman who stood by her said to her, "Do not be afraid, for you have given birth to a son." But she did not answer or pay attention. And she called the boy Ichabod, saying, "The glory has departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because her father-in-law and her husband." And she said, "The glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God was taken." So I love how these verses here give us this, it's very vividly painted for us. There's lots of detail in this. A lot of times you read, and Israel lost, and there was, mourning, and the ark of God. It's just like really vague, little bits. But this is an extremely detailed account of Israel's defeat and the people that it impacted, what God was doing during these moments here. And so you read about Eli, and he's this old blind man, and the text even goes so far as to tell us that he is heavy. And if you remember in chapter 2, part of God's words against him, the message against him from that unnamed man of God that came and prophesied against him, says that that Eli had been getting fat off of the extra portions, that the best of everything. And so it's just interesting that that's mentioned here. He's sitting on his seat by the road. He's eagerly awaiting to hear any kind of news about what's happened. And he's just distraught about the ark of God being taken into battle. And so then here comes this messenger, and Eli can hear that there's a commotion happening in the people, but he's blind. He can't see that the messenger has torn clothes and dust or ashes on his head, which are all signs of grief and mourning and loss. And he can't hear either what's truly happening. So he calls the man over, and the man gives him the news, and it's not good news. Israel's fled. There's a great slaughter. Both of your sons have died. And then, boom, the fatal blow. The Ark of God has been captured. And that was it for Eli. He fell over backwards, and I'm sure his weight played a part in it, and his neck broke, and he died. And there is another fulfillment of God's prophecy of judgment. Just right there. And then the news is similarly fatal for Phinehas' pregnant wife. She just gets blow after blow. Her husband's dead, her brother-in-law's dead, her father-in-law's dead, and the Ark of God has been captured. That's a lot. And so she goes into labor and dies giving birth, and her last act and words and naming her son really sum up that day, naming him Ichabod, poor kid. What a name. Meaning no glory, or where is the glory? And she explains it's because of the Ark of God being taken. Commentary I read had this to say about it. It says the glory of God had departed in one sense, but the glory left when Israel stopped repenting and trusting God and started superstitiously trusting in the ark itself. The glory of God had indeed departed, but not because the ark of God had been captured. The ark had been captured because the glory had already departed. And I think that sums it up quite well. Any thoughts on chapter 4?
Are they going to mention Ichabod again, or shouldn't Ichabod die too?
That's what I was wondering too. No.
I have not heard any more about Ichabod, but I'll have to check and see if he shows up later.
Yeah, I haven't read on.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
Well, it's interesting that the mom dies, who is not a line of Eli,
right.
but then the boy who would be like, carrying on that name, because he was saying that won't continue.
You're right. Yes.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, I'm surprised the woman died and not
the baby
the
as
baby.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know that there is later on, and I can't remember what chapters it is, but it's when Saul becomes king. Saul kills a bunch of priests that are part of Eli's line, and that just like finishes off.
Okay.
So it could be that Ichabod's part of that.
Later.
I don't know if he's named specifically later on, but I know that like it is made sure that Eli's line is cut off forever as being part of the priesthood. Yeah, makes sense.
God said that, didn't he?
Yes,
He said that all of his
yes.
descendants would die.
Yep, and that, something about where is that here? I will cut off every man of yours from my altar. And that basically means nobody from your line will ever be a priest again. So, well.
So it doesn't mean you're going to kill them all.
I don't know. I don't feel comfortable enough interpreting that. But we do see that that is one of the ways that God does fulfill that. You know, through his sons dying in battle, Eli dies, and later we see Saul killing a bunch of priests, and that finishes off the line. So,
Okay.
yeah.
There was someone else, I was listening to a podcast, there was another mother in the Bible, I can't remember who it was, that named her son something awful. But they had, then that child had a name change. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Had a name change.
Someone changed, he didn't have to grow up with that name.
Because the name meant something.
Because the name meant,
Something bad,
yes,
Oh.
that he would have had to have carried through.
Oh.
like you're a curse.
Yeah, kind of, like this, like.
Yeah, well, names were extremely
Right.
important then.
Right, and, oh gosh.
All
Okay,
I can
I'll have
think
to
of
think about
is
it.
Naomi I just remember when we went through Ruth, all the meanings of the names in Naomi, and Naomi's sons' names meant like disease and like something else. It was like awful. I was like, why?
That is really sad. Disease.
I'll have to think about it, because I thought, oh yeah, so
Yeah,
I think a horrible way to,
Yeah, I know. Your last act, you finally give birth, and you're like, I'm gonna give you a really crappy name.
Boy named Sue.
Yeah.
through no fault of your own, here you are, you
Yeah.
have this horrible
Yeah.
thing to carry on.
What is,
Anytime anybody says your name, they're gonna remember the
Oh,
Ark of
you're
the God.
that one, yeah.
what does Ichabod mean?
Means the glory is departed, or no
Oh,
glory.
that's what it means?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it basically is
all
a
your fault.
reference to,
It's all his fault.
pretty much.
Well,
With
it's
a
sad
name
'cause
like
it
Ichabod.
It wasn't even, yeah, it's like, I feel bad for that kid.
I know.
Sad.
Oh, man. Okay, chapter 5, we can go into chapter 5 here. Let's see. I'll just read the first 5 verses here. Now the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it to the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And when the Ashdodites arose early the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and set him in his place again. And when they arose early the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off on the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. Therefore, neither the priests of Dagon nor all who enter Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. Okay, so that one I know I can find on the map, right? Yes, hold on. Yep, Ashdod is right here. Right here. So the Philistines were people that were part of Canaan that were supposed to be driven out. Remember, they conquered a lot of the area under Joshua. But then Joshua's an old man and he goes, listen, everybody, here's all your tribe areas. There's your land areas. Go and finish driving out the inhabitants. This is your, you can do this now. You're big boys. Put your pants on. Let's go, So everybody's got their territories, but not everybody did a very good job of driving everybody out. And so the Philistines really dominated this area and ended up taking quite a bit of this back. We know that they had Gaza, Ashdod, Ekron, Gath, and what was the other one? Maybe I have it in my notes. Hold on. Gaza. Oh, Ashkelon. Oh, I'm guessing it's this guy right here. So they had 5 major cities all on this coast here, and they were really encroaching in on territory. And so when you read Ashdodites and Ekronites and things like that, they are all part of the Philistine people. And so the Philistines were a group, and then these were their major cities, their 5 major cities that kind of made up their land territory. So the Ashdodites were part of the Philistines. And the Philistines, as we read on, had 5 main rulers or elders. And my guess is that it's one from each major city. And that's kind of how they went about it. So these Philistine rulers, they take the Ark of the Covenant and they bring it to Ashdod, which is their biggest city, and also where they house Dagon, their god. And Dagon is actually supposed to be the father of Baal, which we hear about quite often in the scriptures. And so it's very interesting. And this is what's so interesting about it. The Philistines place the ark, which is the defeated god, before Dagon, which is their victorious god. But the next morning they find their god bowed down before the defeated god. And the writer, I bet he had a smirk on his face when he wrote, that, so they took Dagon and they set him in his place again. Not much of a God if you can't get him back up off the floor, can you? And then it gets worse. They set him up and they're like, oh, don't worry about it, Dagon. It happens to everybody, And then the next morning, even worse. He's not only fallen face down again, but his head is cut off and his hands are cut off. And so the defeated God of Israel is just beating the snot out of the victorious God of the Philistines. And on his own turf, too.
Yeah.
I think that there's a little bit of symbolism in the broken head and hands. It can demonstrate the head represents wisdom and the hands power. And so it can demonstrate that there is no wisdom or power in idols at all. They are powerless. And I think that this, yes, it gives us a laugh for sure, but it also should get us thinking. Because here, the Israelites are not present to defend their God. And we clearly see that God does not need anyone to defend him. He doesn't need anyone to fight his battles for him. He doesn't need anyone's help. He doesn't need someone to help him get back up or put him back together or anything like that. He is going to bring the ark back to Israel all on his own. And this really highlights God's self-sufficiency and his sovereignty. It's a serious warning to everyone that we can't, first of all, we can't manipulate the living God to be like a lucky charm for us, like the Israelites tried to do. But also, God doesn't need you to support him or to carry him or to accomplish any of his plans. If there's any carrying good that's going to be done, he's going to be the one carrying you, because we're the ones that are helpless, not him. And he shows that time and time again, but it's very interesting. Not only is he showing it, he's showing it to a non-covenant people here. He is actually speaking in a very subtle way to a non-covenant people about who he is. He is an all-powerful God who does not need the help of mankind. And he showed that by revealing just what their idol really was. A helpless, empty nothing. Many pagan religions are very much like that. They assume that the gods need mankind to sustain them, to provide for them, to appease them, all these things, which is very interesting because if you think about it, if the gods need mankind, who are the gods? It's the providers and the sustainers. We've made ourselves out to be the gods in that story. People really like to do that. We've been trying to do that ever since the Garden of Eden. And we really need to be careful because sometimes that paganistic idea seeps into Christianity. And we see it a lot where we try to take control of God's plans, of what he's doing. It can look like, you hear a lot of people who say, God needs us to help bring his kingdom to earth. God's not just going to bring his kingdom, we have to bring it. We have to be the ones building his kingdom on earth. Or people say, oh, sure, God will take care of me, but I don't expect him to do everything. So I got to work really hard to provide for me and my family, even if it means working instead of going to church or things like that. You're not trusting God to truly provide for you when you habitually do that. I'm not trying to be mean to anyone who ever misses a Sunday. That's not my intent here. But when you are habitually choosing self-sufficiency over trusting God's providence, that's kind of the idea of that. Or even this is a big one that I'm guilty of. God's not going to bring people to church. I have to make the church more appealing. I have to find ways that will bring people in and make them want to stay, because God's not going to do that on his own. He needs me to do that. Well, that's a tempting one for sure. But it all comes back to God needs me to do things. I have to do these things. It all comes down to what I've done, and God will then be appeased because of me and my work. And that is a very paganistic idea, and it's a very dangerous territory as well. And clearly, God does not care for that because of his response that we see here in 1 Samuel. And don't think that I'm saying that we should stop serving God. That's not the idea here. We have to beware of Christian arrogance in our service to God when we start casting God as the helpless, like Dagon, who needs our help to get him back up. That's the dangerous part. Verses 6 and 7, let's see, I'll just go ahead and keep reading. Now the hand of the Lord was heavy on the Ashdodites, and he ravaged them and smote them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territories. When the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, "The ark of the God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is severe on us and on Dagon, our God." So it's really interesting to see that they are acknowledging that it is God who is the God of Israel who is doing these things. And we hear about these tumors. Later on, we also read about rats and confusion and death. A lot of scholars think that the tumors may have been like lymphatic swellings that would have been like bubonic plague, basically, that rats carry. A lot of these things that it talks about are very much the symptoms of the bubonic plague. So a lot of scholars believe that, which is a very good idea. But in either way, doesn't matter what it is, God was laying a very heavy hand of wrath on the Philistines. And the Ashdodites, they confess that they can't stand up to the God of Israel, and neither can their God Dagon stand up to the God of Israel, which is really interesting.
But they don't turn from their God either.
They don't. Mm-mm. Yep. Let's keep reading verse 8. So they sent and gathered all the lords of the Philistines to them and said, "What shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel?" And they said, "Let the ark of the God of Israel be brought around to Gath." And they brought the ark of God of Israel around. And after they had brought it around, the hand of the Lord was against the city with very great confusion. And he smote the men of the city, both young and old, so that tumors broke out on them. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. And as the ark of God came to Ekron, the Ekronites cried out, saying, "They have brought the ark of the God of Israel around to us to kill us and our people." And they sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines and said, "Send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it return to its own place, so that it will not kill us and our people." For there was a deadly confusion throughout the city. The hand of God was very heavy there. And the men who did not die were smitten with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. So the ark goes on this road trip from Ashdod to Gath, which is down here, and then up to Ekron. So it's making some rounds here, and it's the evidence is very clear that no matter who possesses the Ark of the Covenant, the people there and the surrounding territories as well are feeling the heavy hand of wrath of God.
I'm surprised they didn't try to burn it or destroy it.
Yes, it is interesting, but I think that it was a pride thing.
Oh.
This was a trophy. You know, they beat the Israelites and they took their ark, which is their God, essentially. They took the Israelites' power, the power that had the plagues in Egypt, you know. I wouldn't be willing to get rid of that anytime soon. I would want to hold on to that if I could. And so they're just kind of, I think at this point, too prideful to admit quite yet. And so that's why it's making its rounds. You know, first it's Ashdod, and they're like, well, maybe the God of Israel is just mad at Dagon, so let's just take him somewhere else, you know? And then that happens with Gath, so like, let's just try Ekron then, just send it over to Ekron, see what they can do. And then Ekron's like, no, please. They'd heard by that point about what's happening with the ark, and but the evidence is very clear. Wherever the ark goes, it brought death and disease to all its possessors. Let's just go into chapter 6. It won't take long. Now the ark of the Lord had been in the country of the Philistines for 7 months. And the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners, saying, "What shall we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us how we shall send it to its place." And they said, "If you send away the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it empty, but you shall surely return to him a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand is not removed from you." Then they said, "What shall be the guilt offering which we shall return to him?" And they said, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For 1 plague was on all of you and all your lords. So you shall make likenesses of your tumors and likenesses of your mice that ravage the land, and you shall give glory to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will ease his hand from you, your gods, and your land. Why then do you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts, when he had severely dealt with them? And did they not allow the people to go, and they departed? Now therefore take and prepare a new cart, and 2 milk cows on which have never been a yoke, and hitch the cows to the cart, and take their calves home away from them. And take the ark of the Lord, and place it on the cart, and put the articles of gold which you returned to him as a guilt offering in a box by its side. Then send it away that it may go. And watch, if it goes up by the way of its own territory to Beth Shemesh, then he has done us this great evil. But if not, then we will know that it was not his hand that struck us, it happened to us by chance. So I think this is really interesting. We see, that the Philistines, they're like, okay, we got to send this thing back home. We're done here. Finally, their pride is no longer in the way. And so they call their spiritual leaders, their diviners, their priests, and they ask, what's the appropriate way of getting rid of this sacred relic that we stole from Israel? Because their God is very angry with us. And so the spiritual leaders of Philistines say, well, if you're going to send it back, then you got to send back something to, as an offering, a guilt offering. You got to have some sort of reconciliation here. And so a lot of times what they did back then was, it was common for them to try to appease their gods by offering whatever it was that caused destruction. So in this case, they're making gold likenesses of the tumors and the mice. Lovely, I know.
Wow.
It's an ugly paperweight. But, so that's what they do. And then they go one step further. They say, not only are we going to, put all this together, but we're going to detail the return trip in such a way that we'll know whether or not it truly was the hand of Israel's God, or if this was just mere chance. And I have a feeling that if they found out that it was just mere chance, they were going to take the ark back. Because if it's Israel's God that's doing this, I don't want to hold on to it anymore. But if it's mere chance, yeah, I'm going to take my chances with it again, because I still want to hold on to it, that's kind of my feeling of it, but I could be wrong. So their idea here is that they've got 2 cows, milk cows who have calves. They take them away from their baby calves, and they hook them to a cart, and they've never been hooked to a cart at all before. And they just let them go. And if the cows not only don't return to their calves, but also stay straight on the road, meaning they're not veering around wildly because they've never done this before, but they act as if they are 2 regular cows that have done this every day of their life, then they know that it was God that was doing this. If anything else happens, they know it was just mere chance. And so Philistines put the plan into action. Let's see, where are we? Verse 10. Then the men did so, and took 2 milk cows and hitched them to the cart, and shut up their calves at home. And they put the ark of the Lord on the cart, and the box with the golden mice, and the likenesses of their tumors. And the cows took the straight way in the direction of Beth Shemesh, and they went along the highway, lowing as they went, and did not turn aside to the right or to the left. And the lords of the Philistines followed them to the border of Beth Shemesh. Now the people of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley, and they raised their eyes and saw the ark, and were glad to see it. And the cart came into the field of Joshua, the Beth Shemite, and stood there where there was a large stone, and they split the wood of the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. The Levites took down the ark of the Lord, and the box that was with it, in which were the articles of gold, and put them on the large stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrificed sacrifices that day to the Lord. And when the 5 lords of the Philistines saw it, they returned to Ekron that day. Okay, so we see that the men in Beth Shemesh, which are right here, this guy right here, they're out reaping in the fields, and they see a cart coming towards them, and then they see, oh, the ark has returned. And I think that people knew what the Ark of the Covenant was. It wasn't that they didn't know what it was. I think it was noticeable, very noticeable. So they would have known what this was. And if you remember, obviously you have the tabernacle in the tabernacle in Shiloh, which is here. But you also have these pockets of Levites that are throughout all of the land. And there must have been some, I forgot to look up beforehand to see if there was an area that Levites were near here. But it seems that in the story that there are Levites that are in the area. And so they did do the proper thing of having the Levites handle the tabernacle items, the Ark of the Covenant, that kind of thing. That was the proper way of doing it. God was very clear in those commands that nobody other than a Levite was supposed to handle his items, the items of the tabernacle. And then they end up burning the cart, the wood. They make that into a fire, and then they kill the cows, and they make that as a sacrifice, and they make sacrifices to the Lord. And then they place all the stuff, the Ark of the Covenant and the box containing all the fun gold things on top of this large stone. And then we need to keep reading to see what happens here. Let's see, it's the...
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know why this popped into my head. The whole time that it was at these different places, did they ever look in it?
The Philistines?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I don't know. It doesn't say, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
I mean, this is the God that
Right,
did all this to the Egyptians. It's like, what's in there?
right.
How would you not try to open it?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
That's what I recorded, but
Yeah.
I just wondered, did
I
they
bet they would.
look inside?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. But,
What God has struck them dead? If
Well,
they did,
well, that's just it.
How did they move it
Or
without
maybe
God's
he wouldn't allow it to
help?
open, like maybe
I
he
suppose.
closed down, I don't know.
I don't know, I just thought,
That was
yeah, he
his
struck people
strike
dead for
master.
touching the
Yeah.
thing.
Okay, but it's not like, okay, why does God strike people dead? When they,
But it's
like,
disobedience, like they didn't follow his,
right,
I want it done like this, specifically like this.
Exactly.
For a reason, and they didn't do it.
and I think that God allowed the Philistines to take it because he was going to teach both the Philistines and Israel a lesson in all of this. That's my thought in it. God isn't just like, oh, you touched it, done.
Yeah.
Here, touch it and see what happens. That's not what he's about. It's all about you're mistreating God. You're irreverent of him. Obviously, the Philistines are like, our God, Dagon one, ha ha ha. God could have handled that a million different ways, but I think that he handled it this way so that he could teach both the Philistines and Israel a lesson. Israel went 7 months without the Ark of the Covenant. That's a huge blow. That's never happened. You know? I think that that's God's showing, like, he's revealing to them, where's your heart at? Where's your heart at? You took it into battle as like a magic trophy thing. And now it's gone. Think about it. You know, like when you send a kid to their room to think about what they've done. You know, I think that's kind of what God's doing in these 7 months. Think about what you've done.
And I suppose if they looked in there, it'd be like,
Yeah.
what is that? Like,
Some really
why are you-
weird stuff in here.
why are you protecting this?
Man.
Yeah. Some knickknacks.
Got a stick in here, you
bread and
gotta-
stick.
What?
That's a lot of rules. Huh?
Yeah, plus all,
Yeah. Because you've got the 10 Commandments.
yeah.
You've got a gold jar of manna, and you have Aaron's budded staff.
Yeah.
At the very least, that. I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah.
What are those boxes that they bury and then dig them up?
Oh,
Yes.
time capsules.
This is rainbow.
But that actually makes me think that, okay, so these next few verses, I think it ties with that. Where are we?
17.
Thank you. These are the golden tumors which the Philistines returned for a guilt offering to the Lord. One for Ashdod, one for Gaza, one for Ashkelon, one for Gath, one for Ekron. And the golden mice according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines belonging to the 5 lords, both of fortified cities and of country villages. Well, that's a whole herd of golden mice, isn't it? The large stone on which they set the ark of the Lord is a witness to this day in the field of Joshua the Beth Shemite. And he struck down some of the men of Beth Shemesh because they had looked into the ark of the Lord. He struck down of all the people 50,070 men, and the people mourned because the Lord had struck the people with a great slaughter. And the men of Beth Shemesh said, who is able to stand before the Lord, this holy God, and to whom shall he go up from us? So they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, the Philistines have brought back the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to you. Okay. There is a lot. What does everybody's translation say about in verse 19 about the 50,070 men? The number.
Just seven.
Seven.
Mine says
70?
70 and 50,000.
Okay. There is a
50,000 in here.
there is a 70. There is a the translators have a very difficult time with this passage as to the number, because literally in the original language, well, first of all, you know, we don't have the original, we just have copied manuscripts. Some of them only have 70, and some of them have, it's literally laid out 70 men, 50,000 men. That's just what it's laid out as in wording. 70 men, 50,000 men, right? One right after the other, men said twice. And so it's taken so many different ways. A lot of people just go, I highly doubt that there were 50,000 men in Beth Shemesh. That seems like a lot. So they think that the 50,000 was just like an error of some sort, or means something totally different. That's why a lot of translations just say 70. There are more word-for-word translations, like what you have, Marilee, what I have, and they will say either 70 men, 50,000 men, or it'll say 50,070. It just combines the number to make one number.
In my footnote, it says perhaps the text should be understood to read, the Lord killed 70 men and 50 oxen.
Yes, that's another
That's a
alternative.
little different.
Yeah.
Young's literal translation says, he smiteth among the men's people 70 men, 50 chief men. A lot of times people think that numbers are representative of things. So 50,000 isn't exactly 50,000 people. The 50,000 is saying 50 important people. And so it's like an inflated number to represent important people. The Holman Christian Standard Bible says he struck down 70 men out of 50,000 men. And then margins like that will say he struck down 70 men of the people and 50 oxen of a man. These translations aren't widely accepted. Most common translations will either say 70 or 50,000, 70, or 70, 50,000, something like that. I think that one of the widely proposed ideas, we're never gonna know. Here's the thing, we're never ever gonna know, and it does not change anything. But one of the widely proposed ideas is that God struck down 70 men at Beth Shemesh, and in total, for this entire road trip with the ark, 50,070 men, including the Philistines and Israelites. So it'd be 70 Israelites, 50,000-ish Philistines. Total 50,070. That's one of the widely proposed ideas. Do we know if that's exactly what happened? No, we don't know. The main thing that we take away from this is that God struck down anyone who treated him irreverently, whether that was Philistine or Israelite. He struck down Israelites too, just for looking in the ark, which I think is really interesting because we don't know who looked in the ark, whether it was Levites or like just Beth Shemesh-amites. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to say. Either way, they should have known. Like, if it wasn't the Levites should have been there going, don't look in.
Well, they knew it was in it.
They knew it was in it, yeah. Exactly. But I guess, okay, if you think about it from their standpoint, they probably know what it is. Maybe they've been near it before, but never actually seen it. And they know that.
Check there was things in it still.
Right.
If it was taken.
Yeah. Oh, there's supposed to be stuff from the time of Moses in there. Do you think it's still in there? Do you
Yeah,
think that
after
man is
it's
still
stolen.
good? Yeah.
Do you think check, make sure everything's still in there?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. But God always reacts when it comes to improper treatment, meaning an irreverent treatment of him and his items. So 70 of them. That's a lot. That's a good number. It wasn't just one guy going, I'll just check and see, you know. It was 70 of them going, what's in there, you know. Of course they looked in. I don't know. We've seen God's wrath against irreverence time and time again. If you guys remember Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu. That's what it was. Nadab and Abihu, they offered strange fire, right? Or am I getting the wrong names? Okay. Whatever. He had two sons that offered strange fire. Both did. Then you have Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who completely abused their priesthood, their authority, etc. God's taken care of them. And now we see both Gentile and Israelites judged for disrespecting God's holiness. And so they send messengers to Kiriath Jearim, which is here. So they're here, Beth Shemesh, Kiriath Jearim's here. Remember, Shiloh is here, but scholars say that the Philistines destroyed Shiloh when they took the ark. And I don't know what their sources are for that. I did not have time to go down that rabbit hole, because it is a rabbit hole. But a lot of people think that they destroyed Shiloh, and that's why it didn't return to Shiloh. And so they're basically like, we don't know what to do with it. So I need to put together a little thing. Yeah, that was one of the pictures I saved, and I can't find it. It was a map of all the places that the ark traveled around, because it just kind of getting past hands for a number of years. It went to Kiriath Jearim, and it was in Gibeon for a while, like 50 years or something like that. And then I can't remember where it went after that. But yeah, it got passed around before it finally made its way to Jerusalem. So I'll have to put that together.
When does it go missing?
It goes missing.
I can't remember when.
Was it after the Babylonians take over?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I think.
During the 400 years of silence between Malachi and Jesus. The Babylonians come in and everybody's exiled and stuff. There's literally like carvings of Babylonians carrying off the items of the tabernacle. You can see them carrying it off. Or at least that's how it's interpreted. Which,
So they took the Ark of the Covenant, and where is it now?
Nobody knows, which is why Indiana Jones is looking for it.
And don't open it, you saw what happened there. Same thing applies.
Yeah. Some people think, I don't know what kind of weight to put on this, but some people think that the Ark of the Covenant will be found at the end of time when a temple is rebuilt. I don't know. We'll see.
When is the temple to be rebuilt?
I can't tell you exactly. It has to do with the time of the Antichrist, because in the Antichrist, does a horrendous act
So the
there.
abomination of desolation, whatever, it is,
Yes.
you have to have a temple to do that.
Right.
So,
Right,
um,
exactly.
to have a temple by then.
So I don't know when the temple will be rebuilt, but it'll be in time for all of that to take place. And so a lot of people think that the Ark of the Covenant will be
They'll find
found
the Ark of the Covenant there.
around that time. I don't know if it will or won't be.
And that temple will be in Jerusalem.
Yes. Yes.
But we won't be around much. That'd be after the rapture.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. We'll be watching from the best seats in the house.
I knew that's where the ark
Any questions? We went through 4, 5, and 6. Look at us go.
How many for next time?
That's a good question. Do 7 and 8 to be safe.
When you were talking about people want to be self-sufficient and kind of be their own God or whatever, when Shane was 5 in his class or something, they asked what you want to be when you grow up. And Shane said, I want to be God.
Well, sounds pretty nice, doesn't it?
Just straighten them out real quick on that.
What were you teaching him?
I don't know. It was the Presbyterian church.
At least he has high aspirations.
Yeah.
Well, we find out pretty quickly that doesn't happen, does it?
My son wanted to be a ditch digger.
Hey, my buddy.
What does he need to know now?
He is CAD, computer-aided drafting.
Oh, that's not anywhere close.
His teacher said, I think you'll be the architect telling the ditch digger. Because it's the big equipment. She says, it's the big equipment. You know, the ditch digger, the big,
Yeah.
hold up, it's Mary Ann and Mike Mulligan, you know. It's like, yeah, it's a ditch digger.
I just remember preschool graduation, Gavin went up there, you have to say their name, maybe how old they are, I can't remember, and what they want to be when they grow up. And Gavin, I mean, I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was a very specific title in the ag world, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was very specific, and he said it was such confidence, oh man.
Like you said, the big machines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He really likes those, yeah.
Yeah.
He would do more than digging ditches though, but,
So we hope.
we'll see.
Someone's gotta do it.
Ditches aren't gonna dig themselves.
Aaron wanted to be a garbage man.
You wanted to be a girl?
Aaron wanted to be
Oh,
a garbage
Aaron.
man.
That would be smelly.
He thought it looked really nice, like that truck.
I like the
I was gonna say, garbage trucks, boys love garbage trucks.
They do. They all go through that phase, I think,
Yes, yes.
of the garbage trucks.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know any girls that went through that phase.
No, because we have noses that work.
We went through princesses.
Our garbage guy, when the kids were little, and they would run up to the garbage truck when they'd see him on Monday morning, and he always had lollipops in his
Oh, my
truck.
God.
Oh, let the kids have a lollipop, and I'm like, well, now they really love you.
Yeah. I really want to be a girl.
Yeah. If you had the smelliest job in the city, of course I'd be handing out lollipops to kids.
Here, just like this, don't smell.
Yeah. Tracy, would you mind praying for us tonight? Thanks.
Father God, I just thank you for this day. I thank you for Rochelle and the work she puts into this study, Father, and we just thank you for studying the Old Testament and how it just points to how much we need you. As we look forward to this season, Father, we ask that you just be with each one of us, and we just ask you to prepare our hearts for just the knowledge of the birth of your Son, and that we can keep our focus on that and still enjoy some of the festivities of the Christmas season, Father, but that we just keep our focus on you. We ask you to be with Deb and with Luella and just all that's going on in their lives, Father, that you would just go before them and give them and their families a sense of peace, Lord, and take care of all the details that need to be taken care of in their lives. We thank you for all the ladies here that are gathered, Father, and be with everyone here that isn't with us. In your name we pray, amen.
Thanks.